Hey, so great to see you all. I am pretty excited to be here with you all tonight. It's great to look out and see so many new faces. Every week, it seems like more and more people are finding out about Veritas, which means you guys are telling other people about Veritas, your classmates, your roommates, your friends, people you work with. And I love that because that means more and more people are hearing about Jesus. If you're new tonight, if tonight is your first week at Veritas, A, I'm really glad you're here. But B, we're in this series that we've been calling Hard Questions, Uneasy Answers. We've been trying to ask and answer hard questions that are good questions, but they're challenging and they're real questions that you all are asking. And tonight is a question that maybe more than any other question as a pastor I'm asked. And that question is this: why would God allow pain and suffering? Why would God allow pain and suffering? Maybe that's your question. Maybe you've gone through something. Maybe you're going through something. Maybe you know someone who's going through something. And that's one of the questions that you have. Why would God allow pain and suffering? Well, rather than me trying to answer that question tonight, we're going to do something a little bit different. Maybe you saw this on Instagram. Rather than me kind of talking for the next 30 or so minutes, I thought that it would be such a treat for us and you all to hear, especially one of the hidden gems, I think, of Veritas. It's a friend that I've gotten to know over the last year and a half. She's here among the crowd. Kiley, wherever you are, I don't know where you are. She's over here. Hey, so Kiley and I are going to have a little bit of a conversation for the next 30 or 45 minutes because she has a really cool story to tell. And I'm really eager for you all to hear it. But let me start by saying this. Kiley, I shared some of this with you earlier. But about 18 months ago was the first I ever heard of you. And the reason that I heard of you is because I saw a picture. So you had gone to a Veritas summer part, I don't know, like meet Veritas. It was for freshmen in Kansas City. We did an event, I think it was at Top Golf. Yeah. And I was not at that event. But I got a picture of all the people that were there. And in just kind of my OCD, looking at all the details, I noticed that Kiley had at least an engagement ring, but I was, zoomed in enough to notice it was a wedding ring. And, me, if you know me, I fall over my words and say things I shouldn't say all the time, and sent my staff team a text and said, "Who's the freshman that's already married? That's weird." Which, come to find out, nobody responded to that, which I thought was bizarre because my joke was funny. At least I thought, until someone the next morning said, "Hey, there's a long story to why she's got a wedding ring on." And that leads us to tonight and this long story that I'm thrilled you get to share. So let's just jump in. How do we get here? Tell us your story. Tell us about high school. Tell us about everything that's gone on in your life up until right now.
Yeah, so I fully accepted Christ. I think turning back from my rebellious stages of high school and after my sophomore year when I went to a summer camp, and I felt like God was really preparing me for what was going to happen 8 months leading up to this thing. And so what happened in May of 2019, my dad got diagnosed with cancer, and that was really hard, obviously. And then I got diagnosed with cancer the summer after, in 2020, after my senior year of high school. I was gonna come to Mizzou originally, and I was already enrolled in all my classes for hospitality management. Yeah. But God had other plans for me, and he was like, "No, you're not going." And I had to stay in KC for treatments. My dad still had it, And then my dad ended up dying in November of 2020, because this is like the cancer that we have is the most aggressive form of brain cancer. And it he lasted 18 months. So like the I don't know, the life expectancy thing, because everybody always wonders, like, when the C word pops up, like, oh, what's life expectancy? And so he lasted 18 months, and that's pretty normal, I guess, for this brain cancer. And so I lasted over 2 years so far, and I'm on the 35% marker right now, too. Yeah, so that's good. Yeah. But
Yeah, so this story is certainly not one of all smiles, right? And I know, having talked to you about this quite a bit, that it's been hard.
Yeah.
And so why don't you do this? Why don't you share with us when your dad, so life is relatively good, great family, high school is high school, but things are pretty good, and your dad gets diagnosed. What's going on in Kiley's head at that point when dad gets diagnosed with cancer?
yeah, I was originally shocked, like, I didn't know what to say, because, like, I didn't know that this could really be happening to me. I knew, like, something was going to happen, like, because we talk about, like, suffering as Christians all the time, and I'm like, oh, I've never suffered before, and then I shouldn't have said that, so. But I had it was pretty rough. I have 4 sisters, too. One's older and 3 are younger, and so we had to, like, do a lot of comforting and stuff, and, like, we just leaned in to our family a lot, and he was the strongest out of all of us, honestly. I remember him when we all, like, my mom and dad shared us the news, that he had cancer, and it wasn't a good type, that he was even, like, quoting Bible verses, and I'm like, how can you do this in a time like that? Like, I feel like I've stabbed in the heart, like, because I know that my hero is going to die before me, and that's sucks.
Yeah.
And so he wanted to just say that, like, if one more person comes to know Christ, it'll all be worth it. And that's what he said, like, when he was diagnosed. And he was like, I got this for a reason, and I'm going to make the most of it and share Christ with as many people as I can until the day I die. And that's what he did. And so, yeah, I was very blessed to be raised by a dad that taught me a lot about Christ and stuff like that.
Yeah, tell us more about your dad. What was he like?
So there's pictures of my dad somewhere, but yeah. That was my dad when he had a skinny face before cancer. Cancer got the best of him and made him have a fat face. And he was a more, like, of actions guy. He cared a lot about children and the love of God, and he actually was an FBI agent for child something, like, I can't remember the name of it right now, but he basically helped children from getting raped, and he was on those cases with all that. And then he read the Bible every day during lunch and stuff to just wipe his, that's not him at lunch though, but that's my dad. He was actually, I think, in that picture, writing letters to us or something, but I haven't read all mine yet. But anyways, it's too hard. Yeah. He was a person of action, and you could tell that he loved you and you could tell that he loved Christ. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's good. That's great. It's great to hear. I mean, it sounds like he's a great guy.
Yeah.
So, what was life like, though, when you found out that he had cancer? How did life change for you and your family?
Yeah. So we started making the most memories we've ever made, and really taking all like the family time, more like what's that word, into account or into whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we cherished it more. But yeah, and so we went like on cruises, or we went on like little vacations, or we made it purposeful to like just sit and watch movies together. And like there was this one time he was a big desserts guy, and there was this one time he used like a gutter, like this long, and he made like everything but the kitchen sink ice cream stuff.
Dude, I've been trying to do that at Veritas for years.
Oh.
Literally for years.
He was like, you guys are having dessert tonight for dinner. So that was pretty cool. He was all like childish excited about it. But yeah, it was like little things like that, and also like the big things like the cruise.
Yeah.
But it was purposeful.
Yeah.
Like,
so he's diagnosed, and family time becomes that much more important, that much more significant. In a certain sense, time was running out. And while your dad and you and your family is grieving his diagnosis, kind of the unimaginable happens, and you're diagnosed too.
Yeah.
So how far into his own diagnosis were you, or was he, when you found out?
So he died like not even 6 months after.
Okay.
I think. I don't.
So you find out about a year into his diagnosis that you've got it too.
Yeah.
Same kind, same exact thing.
Yep. And I remember the doctor coming in and like telling me about it, and he was there obviously, but he wasn't really like himself, and but he was like crying. I remember him crying about it, and my dad doesn't cry. Like, he doesn't cry a lot, but he was crying, and he thought it was something that he had done, like, but it wasn't genetic at all. Like, it just so happened that the same family got hit with the same 2 lightning rods, so at the same time.
Crazy.
Yeah. But,
So when you find out, what's going through your head?
well, I didn't want to be like him. That's bad, but like, I was watching him slowly deteriorate over time, and that is awful. And I didn't want to turn fat from the steroids, and like, I don't know, I just didn't want to have that life. Like, I also was mourning my dreams for the future. Like, I didn't, like, right then, I was not even gonna be married or have kids or like go to college, and I still don't go to college, but you know. But yeah, that's my choice though.
Yeah.
And it was just a whole lot of like mourning things, but it took a while to get it.
Yeah. So how does life change? It changed in a certain sense when your dad's diagnosed. Now you're diagnosed.
Yeah.
Now what changed with life? What changes with life?
Yeah. Well, we still like spent a lot of time with. Yeah, we have. Well, the picture. There's an MRI from my first diagnosis. That was my brain. That was the tumor inside my brain that they removed. But then I think it's the picture after, the driveway picture. Nick knows what I'm talking about. That's what happened when we found out the tumor was inside my head. everybody gathered for a worship night in my driveway.
This is like right after you're diagnosed, right?
No.
Like just a few days?
Just like it was like June 15th, so it was the like after they found the tumor.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a seizure to where they found a
Okay.
tumor. Yeah. But I think my dad's hand is the one that's raised up, and we were both in the middle of the circle, and like everybody around, like our neighbors, friends, everyone, his coworkers, came, and like a lot of people came to know Christ through him and through that, and it was just like a special time. Like I'll never forget that time in the driveway.
Yeah.
COVID era.
Yeah. Yeah, again, so there have been obviously some really sweet moments, but I'm guessing that there have been a lot of really hard moments. If you're willing, share what's been hard, what's been some of the harder moments for you kind of in this journey with having cancer, knowing that sooner rather than later you're going to die.
Yeah, I actually had a scare. Well, they told me I was going to die. Well, okay, when my dad died in November, I went to the Grand Canyon after, well, not just me, my family. Sorry. It's so hard not to like hear what's going on out there. Anyways.
In front of people.
So we came back from the Grand Canyon, and I had a doctor's appointment, and I had an MRI like normal, and well, this scan did not come back so pretty. The scan is actually on here as well. That's what it looked like. So it progressed from that to that.
And how much time? Isn't that like a month?
It's from October to November. Yeah, it's a month. But like I was off of radiation then. I had to lose my hair during radiation, and it was sad. But the scare of like I had 3 months to live.
Because
they
that's
told
what
me
doctors
that.
told you.
Yeah, they told me that I had 3 months to live in November, right after my dad died. And I'm like, well, I'll see my dad again, but I also am gonna die much sooner than I had anticipated. And so I was like, well, let's get married. And so
The girls down here like that.
yeah. So I married, well, my boyfriend at the time. We were dating for like, I don't know, a year and 7 months or a year and ish. But yeah, that's him. And there's more. Aw, so cute. And
You're how old here? 18?
18. We got married both at 18 on the 18th, December 18th. For that.
Crazy.
Yeah. And that's our high school pastor that married us, and that actually the blessing was sang at our wedding. And it was kind of our theme song throughout my theme song throughout this whole journey. And it's been, I mean, so after surgery, I couldn't necessarily talk correctly. I talked like a robot, like a really bad robot. Like if a robot was breaking down, I talked like that. But I could think all of the things in my head like normal. And people would treat me like a preschooler and like she's dumb, like she don't know like anything.
Yep.
Because I talked like that.
As it turns out, you just had massive surgery on your brain.
And so I hated being treated like that.
Yep.
But I don't know where I was going with this. What was I?
I don't know, but it's fine. Let me ask you a different question. So I said this earlier, as a pastor, one of the things that I often hear is, why does God allow this? But I also see pain and suffering as something that people don't just ask, they use as a reason. you can come to it in a second, as a reason to actually walk away from their faith. And so I think one of the questions that I obviously have in regards to that is, what has it been like for you trying to faithfully follow Jesus in the midst of this really difficult circumstance, pain, suffering? There had to be lots of low moments.
Yeah.
There had to be lots of really hard. Like, how has that been for your faith? Like, what's that been like?
Obviously, I'm angry at God, or I was angry at God, and that's fine. Like, in the Psalms, like, you read that, like, people are angry at God all the time. Like, people have emotions, and God knows that, and it's what you do with that anger. And
so you're angry, God, why would you let this happen? God, why, you know?
Yeah, and I remember a time, like, where also with my dad, and I hadn't had cancer before this happened, but my dad had to have 2 surgeries, and he had a seizure after the second one, and I had to go to a summer camp, and after, and I had to leave Texas and go fly to Arizona by myself, Arkansas, to a summer camp, and I was going into hospital to say, like, bye to my dad, and then there was, like, a nurse outside his door, and I'm like, oh no, and it was 6 o'clock in the morning or earlier, and my mom came out, and she was like, Kiley, your dad just had a seizure, and he can't really talk right now, and, like, he's really frustrated about it, and but just try to remain calm when you go in there, and just tell him you love him and all that. And I'm like, why is she telling me to remain calm as I'm crying? And, like, she knows I can't do that. But anyways, I did it, and I was like, Dad, I love you, and gave him, like, a slightly hug, like and then I had to go into the airport by myself, and like, after I had just gone through that whole thing, and I was trying not to cry because it looked really embarrassing if I was crying in an airport, and I didn't want someone to come up to me. And but anyways, we make it to the summer camp, and, like, on Father's Day or something, because the camp was obviously during it ran through Father's Day and stuff like that. But one of my mentors at the time, she called me over, and she was like, hey, Kiley, someone's here to talk to you on the phone. And I'm like, what? We're not allowed to have phones. Like, why is she giving me this? And turns out it was my dad, and my dad, he said he loved me. And that was, first of all, like, the only time that I remember, like, my dad saying he loved me for the first time, because he did actions more than words. Like, he would show me he loved me, but I never really remember him saying it. They played the Goodness of God song by Bethel, and I was like, God, before that, I can't sing it because I don't believe you are good right now. Like, I don't see how, like, when my dad can't talk and I don't know what's going on at home, and I'm just stuck wondering what's going to happen next. Like, I don't know how you're good. And then fast forward to that call and stuff, I was singing the song by the end of the week, and it just takes, like, you have to notice the little random, like, joyful moments or the good acts of God, like the fall whatever that word is.
Leaves.
Yeah, fall leaves. It's so pretty right now, and that shows how much God is good. And, like, babies are born every day, and it shows how much God is good, and like, I don't know, it's
Yeah. So you're saying, hey, look, there was a brief time, or at least maybe longer than brief, where it was really hard to believe that God was good. I mean, it felt like the walls were caving in, the sky was falling. Why are these things happening? But slowly over time, that somehow eroded, and actually what became an anger and frustration toward God actually became a sweeter relationship with Jesus. Talk
Yeah.
to us about that. How do you think, like, how do you go from, God, I'm mad at you, to, in the midst of my dad dying, me dying, you're good?
Honestly, it's process. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight, and it takes a community of support around you, encouraging you. Sometimes that community gets annoying and you want nothing to do with it, and you just want to lay in bed and watch Netflix. Trust me, I do that still. My husband knows that. And, but it's like, it just takes people, and you can't do life without people, and that just shows it. Like, we had meal trains coming, and we had people constantly praying for us, and it was nice to like know that you are so loved by so many people, and you have this support. Because if you're all alone, then it's so more depressing. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So community is huge.
Yeah.
What gives you hope in the midst of having cancer?
Going to heaven one day. I mean, to live is Christ, to die is gain. And Paul wrote that somewhere. I don't know where in the Bible. I'm not that kind of person.
That's all right.
I'm not a pastor. No offense, Kyle.
I'm not offended.
That's what God gifted you to do. But anyways, but I struggled with the point of like killing myself because I thought it was too much, and I wanted to die sooner.
Yeah.
And when I went in for MRIs that they looked clear and were not changing, I wanted to die because I wanted just the uncertainty to go away, and I wanted everything to just go away and be with my dad and be with God in heaven, praising the Lord. And but God was like, okay, you're staying here, and I know I'm here for a reason. And my dad was, in a video, my dad was even like, well, I mean, it happened in person too. I recorded the video, but my dad was like, however long you keep me here, it's great. And like, however long God keeps me here, I'll keep doing his work and keep leading people to Christ. And then when he takes me home, I'm ready. And like, I'm not afraid to die at all. Like, I'm just going to be here like living for Christ. And then, it's going to be.
Has that evolved for you? Like, have you always,
No, yeah. I think it was when I was at the Grand Canyon, and it was before I even set like the thought of like the 3 months or whatever. But I was just thinking, and it's a big, it's a place where you can have that thinking.
Yep.
And we watched sunset, and I'm like, heaven is in color, I think, because it's so beautiful, and God created color for a reason. And I'm wondering if like my dad is looking at what I'm seeing right now, and like you see the sunset reflection on the rocks of the Grand Canyon and on the sky, like they're reflecting off each other, and it's like very beautiful, and like God created that, and it's just amazing. And I'm like, you know what? I'm so excited. If you can create something this beautiful on earth that we've ruined, then I can't believe and I can't imagine what you have in store for us in heaven. Like, it's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I hear often is that part of what makes these things feel so difficult is that it doesn't seem like there's any reason. It feels random. Would you say that you feel like your suffering has purpose?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't give this story to anybody else. Like, I'm
What do you mean
lucky.
by that?
Well, I was praying and talking to God, I think. Like, I don't know. I'm not really good at praying. I can admit that because we
Yeah.
all struggle with something. But I do like worshiping, so.
Yeah.
But anyways, I was like talking to God, and I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't let anybody else have this because I believe that like God gave me it for a reason, and I get to tell my story for a reason. And I'm like thinking about all the people in my family that could have gotten diagnosed and with this, and I'm like, honestly, I don't think anybody else, well, not offense to them, but like anybody else could have, I don't know, taken this job on. And like I'm blessed that I get to like be a part of God's story and what he's doing. And I'm like, I don't know what he's going to do through me, but I mean, it's going to be something good.
Yeah, I think that's been one of the most encouraging things for me personally, just as I've gotten to know you and your story, is your willingness to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm leaning into God in a way that says, I trust you, and you know that he's using you in your story, even in ways that you don't realize.
Yeah.
And that's a really beautiful thing. It's scary, but it's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, and when so me and my dad both, I couldn't talk, I remembered it like recently, but when I couldn't talk, I could sing, and I could sing praises to God, and it was amazing. Like, they told me that I was going to be temporarily paralyzed on my right side because they were operating on my left, and that didn't happen. So I went home and grabbed my guitar and started playing, and it was awesome. My mom has a recording of it, but and then my dad, when he talked about Christ, he could talk like clearly because his speech was starting to deteriorate. I'm nervous. So
Words are hard. It's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I'm nervous a lot too.
But yeah, his speech was starting to go away. But when he talked about Christ, he was clear. Like, you could just see the Holy Spirit working through him, and those words, like, the Holy Spirit wanted to come out. And so if they want to come out, they're clear. So
yeah. What would you say to someone in the room or maybe watching this later, really struggling, as you even have yourself, I have, but what would you say to someone struggling with this question of like, how can God be good and let these kinds of things happen? Like, what sort of encouragement would you give to that person, maybe an earlier version of yourself, asking, a younger Kiley asking God why? What would you maybe in hindsight say to that person or to someone, here watching later?
I remembered I answered that question earlier on a piece of paper, but I don't remember what I said. But I think I would just say, like, one, people always told me, like, to pray, and I'm like, okay, I roll my eyes at it because I don't feel like, normally I struggle with praying because I don't feel like I'm talking to anybody, and I'm just, like, talking to the air. But, like, sometimes it happens, and sometimes, like, I don't feel like that, but, yeah, it's a struggle. But do, like, whatever you feel, whether it's, like, worship or prayer or journaling or something, just to get it out. And, like, you can be mad at God, but don't run away from God. Like, he doesn't want this stuff and bad stuff to happen to you. And he doesn't like you to suffer. Like we sang in the song, like he weeps. And he was like, even on the cross as he was dying, he was like, God, why have you forsaken me? And he was even like mad at God, which he's God, but his father. And it like gives me so much hope and stuff just because God suffered. And Jesus suffered so that like we can go to heaven, and Jesus suffered, so why shouldn't we suffer? Is how I think of it, and because Jesus shouldn't have suffered. We should always be the one suffering because he was perfect and we're sinful. But I don't know if that answered that question. But
Well, I like what you're saying, that you're saying, one, it's okay to be honest with God about where you're at, and so we don't have to pretend. We don't have to act like it's okay when it's not. And I like that you're a little bit also okay saying, I don't have all the answers. And so to the person maybe asking that question, it's okay not to have a clean answer, right? But your encouragement has been lean into that. Don't run away from it.
Yeah.
And the more we lean into that, the more God draws near to us in those moments. And you've experienced that, and that's been an encouragement to your faith, has grown your faith. And I think that's a really cool thing.
Yeah.
That God has done.
One thing I want to add too, I forgot to share this earlier. Someone gave me these very wise words, so I'm not claiming them for myself, but she was going through a pretty rough time, and she said that if more people come to know Christ through my life, let me live. If more people come to know Christ through my death, let me die or take me home. If more people come to know Christ through my suffering, let me suffer. So I also think that's pretty good.
Yeah, why has that been so meaningful to you?
Well, it's my friend's mom that gave me advice, and she committed suicide. So right before my dad got cancer, and she was the wisest person and she said that out of her hurting when she lost her daughter. And so I thought it was just like, you're giving me advice and comfort when you just lost someone close to you, and it's more meaningful coming from somebody that's already going through suffering and stuff like that, when she gives you words of encouragement that, I don't know, like,
Answer this for me, kind of switching gears just for a second. I know that most of us here don't know what it's like to have lost a dad and have cancer. And I'm sure as people in your life have come to know parts of your story, there have been good and bad things that people have done and said. Share with us, just as we as a community, we're called to be in community, to carry each other's burdens, and we kind of fumble through that, my guess. What's been some of the, without maybe naming names, what's been some of the, hard things that people said, or maybe, what not to say to someone going through something like this? Maybe what's been really helpful, for you? How can we better care for each other in the midst of really hard things? What would you say to some of that?
So some people, a religion in particular, they just say we've had people say to us, just have more faith. And that's why you got cancer, because you didn't have enough faith, or you sinned too much. Don't say that. But I don't believe anyone in here would say that, because that's just rude. And then also, what was I going to say? I forget. I'm always
one of the things you mentioned to me that you should hit on this is not always wanting to be the sick girl, or not always wanting to be the girl whose
I was
dad
treated
died.
like that back where I'm from. I'm from Kansas City. Woo, woo. Hey.
Come on.
Boo, Sierra. Okay.
Me? She called you
Hey,
out,
I called
man.
you out. Anyways, sorry.
No, you're good.
Anyways, yeah, so people would either one, not want to be friends with me anymore because they would lose me. Two, always treated me like the sick girl or like, I don't know, I'm incapable of stuff, which before people heard my story tonight, like, I'm pretty capable of things. Like, I like to be an independent, well, even though I'm married, independent female woman. But, yeah, and I like doing my things myself. I'm pretty stubborn. And so, like, you don't have to treat me any differently than you would, like, a normal, everyday, not sick person. So I do not want you doing this after tonight. That was my fear, actually coming and sharing my story. So, because I liked that I had a fresh start in Columbia. And, yeah.
Yeah, so what not to do. Tell someone going through something harder that they just need to believe more, pray harder, stop sinning, and that will all go away.
Yeah.
Don't keep friends at arm's length because you're kind of scared of the messiness because we need each other.
Yeah.
Don't just identify us with the struggles that we have, but be there to be a part of that. Sometimes just listen.
Yeah.
Sometimes probably that's the biggest help, to not have the answers.
People judged me. They were like, can I say, like?
Yeah, you can say what you want. You got a mic.
So, I know I got a mic. But, so when me and Cole got married, they're like, oh, why are you
It's like me with my staff team. What's
married?
up with the girl that getting married?
Are you pregnant? Like,
Oh, I didn't say that.
yeah, they said that to me, and I'm like, no, I actually have cancer. So it was like a big uh-oh to them. So, yeah.
Yeah, so maybe don't be so quick to make assumptions about each other,
like,
right?
People are so quick to judge people.
Yeah.
The other day, or not the other day, but like all the time. I mean, I was, when I had short hair, there's multiple pictures that I sent there that had, there was multiple people. Yeah, that was when I got my head shaved. It was hard. But yeah, there was multiple people that thought I was dating my sister when I had short hair and stuff like that. And so it's just like little things like that, like you don't know what someone's going through, so don't be so quick to judge them.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe ask instead of just assume.
Yeah.
Be a good friend.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, I'm bluntly ask people stuff all the time. My small
Yes,
group
you
knows
do.
that.
Yes, you do. Okay, we're running out of time, so let's end on this question. As we're kind of all going out, what sort of encouragement? What sort of encouragement do you, I know it probably sounds odd for me to ask you to encourage us, but I think that's one of the beautiful things as I've gotten to know you. It's one of the things that you do best is encourage people. And yeah, I just wonder, like, what sort of encouragement would you give to us as we will eventually have hard things? We'll eventually have our own struggles and our own hardships and our own crappy circumstances. What sort of hope, encouragement do you want to leave us with?
Yeah. I'd say, one, don't keep it to yourself. Tell somebody what you're going through. Like, somebody, like most of us are in small groups. Like, that's perfect place. If you don't want to tell that big of a crowd, like, get together with someone for coffee, or if you don't like coffee, I don't know, water. Who doesn't like coffee? All right, my husband. Anyways, so just tell somebody, and so that you don't have it all to yourself, because it's a lot of weight to carry around. And don't shove all your feelings. Like, get that somebody that you want to tell everything to, and literally tell them everything. and I'm still working on it, but like it's been hard. It's not easy, and good at the same time.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Hey, let's give Kiley a round of applause. It's really, really hard to do this and to share the hard parts of your story in front of lots of people. And so I certainly don't take for granted. Thanks so much for being here. Let me just close in prayer. And then, Jesus, I thank you so much for Kiley in particular. And I thank you for this opportunity that we have to hear her story. The highs and the lows, and more specifically, the ways that she is growing in her love and trust of you in spite of unbelievably difficult circumstances. Frankly, circumstances that I don't even know what it is like. Many of us in this room don't know what that's like. But I know for me, I'm encouraged by her faith. Her love for you points me to you. And I hope that that has happened for all of us tonight. Jesus, I pray you invite us to ask big things. And so I'm just going to ask that if it's your will, that you would heal Kiley. I know that probably feels like an impossible prayer, and it might not be likely, but we're going to pray that you would work a miracle in her life and that the cancer would go away. But if not, we pray that she would continue to do exactly what she's doing in pointing us to you. And not just us, but pretty much everybody she comes in contact with, that she would continue to see her story in light of the bigger story that you're telling, that she would see that even these difficult things, there is purpose and meaning in them, that she would continue to walk faithfully and live for you. And I pray that for all of us as we inevitably go through our own hardships, whether it's now or someday soon or someday in the distant future. Jesus, would those things not keep us from you, but would those things inevitably draw us near to you? Help us, Jesus, to love you more. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.